I'm going to call to order the March Finance Committee meeting. Thank everybody for being here today. As usual, we will begin with the consent. And while I'm thinking about it, looking at our budget director, next month in April, Mr. Garrity, y'all going to have a budget update at that meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, just kind of a preview. Wait a minute, I dropped of what's coming.
Hopefully it's better than we thought
preview.
it was, yes.
You know, the preview's usually the best part of the movie. See the preview, you don't need to see the movie. Okay, begin with a consent item. Does anyone have any items to pull off consent? Anyone? C7. We have C7.
C8, please.
C8. Mr. Larson, anybody?
10 and 13.
C10 and C13. Ms. Burke, you got any? No. Can I get a motion to approve the balance?
Approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the balance of the consent. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. They are approved, and I will do them in numerical order. We will start with C7. If the secretary could read that one, please.
Item C7, resolution awarding construction contract for Reynolds Park Golf Course cart path repairs located in the southeast ward, Triad Land Concepts, LLC, in the amount of $170,256.
Jeff, is this yours?
No.
Oh, it's yours, excuse me.
What I want to ask is, what is the timeline that we're looking to do this? And are we talking about complete replacement and repair, replacement and or repair? And again, when are we thinking about doing this, being that we still got Winston Lake down?
Who wants to comment? Mr. Bates, you going to come up?
This project, we're hoping to have an award at by the March 26th meeting. We would anticipate work beginning in mid to toward the end of April. The construction time on this project is about 45 days. The work to be done is the cart paths that are damaged primarily. So it'll be clearing those out and hauling off and then replacing the damaged areas.
So we will not be shutting down half of the golf course. It's just a patch and repair, that sort of thing for safety and other things.
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Move forward.
We have a motion and a second to approve C7 with any other questions? If not, could I get a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. C7 is approved. We will now go to...
We got to do this electronically.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm getting...
I did.
Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute.
The ball game on tonight?
No, it's just Monday. I'm sorry. Everybody, please vote accordingly. Should I have done that on the Well, y'all just don't have to
I
work with
pressed
me.
it, but
We have it on video.
Yeah.
All right, we have it on video. Okay, we'll now go to C8. If the secretary would read that one, please.
Item C8, resolution approving contract with Verizon for automated vehicle location services in the amount of $266,285.40.
I pulled this.
McIntosh, this is yours.
Yeah, I just wanted Tom Kay to give us a brief overview of what we're doing here. This is a one-year extension or a one-year transition?
It's actually a change in the contract. Back in August of last summer, you all approved a 3-year contract with RMJ Technologies, and they've been our vendor. They're a third party that sells Verizon services for the AVL solution. And back in the fall, Verizon announced they're dropping third-party partners, and now customers will work directly with Verizon. So what we're in the process of doing is ending the contract with RMJ, and with approval of this request, we will sign a new 1-year contract with Verizon directly for 1-year services, and then monthly after that with obviously reduced rates to the GSA services.
So Verizon kicked their vendor to the curb and took it internal?
All third parties, yes. Not just this one, but all third parties.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and I see here what is it? You're going to get a yearly savings of $64,000.
That's correct. Through the change in the practice, because Verizon's eliminating the third party, there's some savings.
Okay.
And also they're using general services administration pricing. so we can take advantage of being a local government. And that savings I put in the council action form is based on, a fixed number of vehicles today, so it could vary up and down, but it's in the ballpark.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to
Motion
approve
to
this? We have a motion, you have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve C8. If you'll vote when it comes up. And that is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank Tom. We'll now go to C10. Mr. Larson, this is yours. If the secretary could read this one.
Item C10, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the North Carolina Department of Transportation for the Business 40 mitigation strategies for Winston-Salem Transit Authority services.
Greg, you want to give a 1 minute on this one? I don't see Ms. McCullough unless she's hiding from.
No, I'll tell Larry to take it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this item is to provide for the city and park to receive funding from the state if it is approved in a grant on the order of $9.5 million for congestion mitigation and other treatments to deal with the closure of Business 40. These would be alternative methods for people to get around using WISTA and park services in anticipation of all the congestion that we would have associated with that project. Incidentally, item 13 is also related to the closure of Business 40.
So this is basically giving the city manager the authority to work with the state on this.
The grant has not been approved yet, and obviously we won't spend any money until the grant's approved, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other question? Mr. Larson?
As I understand, this is reimbursable, is the way this works, up to $9.5 million reimbursable.
Correct.
Yeah, I wanted to pull this for the simple reason that I think it's a strong indicator of Division 9 NCDOT's commitment to try to help us through this awkward period of having I-40 or Business 40 closed, and the attempt to find ways to mitigate that in any number of ways. And this is this is going to come to Public Works, I believe, later, and then will actually be fleshed out, and we will see the details of what that $9.5 million perhaps could buy us in the sense of mitigating our transportation needs. But it's an ongoing project, and I think it's important for the public to know that we're continuing to work on trying to mitigate the damages. Thank you.
Where are we in the continuum of being awarded this money? Is there any certainty? Is it?
I'd say we're 75% confident. Okay. Almost certain. I'd put it this way: we're 100% certain we'll get something.
Right.
We're 75% confident in this amount.
Right. And I know this. I mean, this has been talked about for a while, but we feel all along like we're getting closer to getting a yes on it. The Ouija board.
I think we're probably 2 or 3 months away from a final decision from them at most.
Okay. Thank you.
Any comments or questions for anyone else? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve C10? We have a motion. We have a second?
Second.
Now, y'all be sure to push the button so I don't get in trouble here. All right, we have a motion and a second. If everybody please vote on C10, and that is approved. We will now go to 13. By the way, just Mr. Larson made a comment. I'm assuming Public Works Committee will bird dog this, but I think as we get closer, particularly at first, I think once people get comfortable with what roads are open and not, it will tend to line itself out. But I would certainly think the first couple of weeks we probably need some officers out there directing traffic and kind of showing people how to do it till everybody kind of gets used to it. But anyway, I'll leave that up to Mr. Bessie and his able-bodied committee. Okay, C13, if we'll read this one, please.
Item C13, resolution approving a lane and sidewalk closure policy, authorizing permit fees for temporary right-of-way closures.
I was going to have Mr. Turner to introduce this to us.
Mr. Chairman, NCDOT also asked us to look at the detour routes and other roadways that are likely to be used by citizens when Business 40 is closed down, and to implement a program to require contractors and others who are going to need to do work at times on those roads to pay a penalty if they're doing work that would be in conflict with the detour routes of Business 40. So what we've got here is a proposal to implement a fee structure for actual lane and road closures and even sidewalk closures for dealing with the effects of all this diverted traffic that we anticipate will be on our surface streets. What you have is a standard fee and then a extra fee that's roughly twice as much for the actual closure. The city's inspection amount stays the same, but the actual cost of doing a closure for the contractor or the utility would go up if they're trying to do work in the rush hour time periods when obviously traffic is going to be most acute of a problem.
So what we're saying on, when we close 40, the roads that are going to pick up the detour traffic, we would like a minimal amount of disruption on those.
What we anticipate is that all the roads in the urban area are going to have increased traffic
Yeah.
just because 40 is closed, regardless of whether it's an official detour route or not.
Okay.
So what we're wanting to do is implement a fee to encourage contractors to work off-peak as much as possible, but also to realize that during this period, we're going to have some impacts on our operations, and so this revenue would help address that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Larson, you had a question?
Yeah, I think anybody that's driven downtown recently understands the problem, and Business 40 isn't even closed yet, and we've had trouble, particularly on places like Cherry Marshall and 3rd Street and 2nd Street as work has continued, and certainly brings to mind what is going to happen when we up the traffic count. So, you know, I certainly applaud this effort to try to incentivize the most efficient use of closing or using our streets. I do have one question, though, which I'm sure a contractor will eventually ask, and that is if we close a lane, for example, and that will necessitate, for example, closing a sidewalk. Is that fee cumulative, or does one include the other?
Cumulative.
It's cumulative. So, okay. So if you're constructing a hotel on Cherry Street, for example, Marshall Street, and you've closed a lane and you've closed the sidewalk, you pay both fees.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Just quickly, the Cherry Street Hotel brings to mind an issue there that they have a one-lane closure that bumps out to a two-lane closure on a fairly regular basis. Do we have anything currently in policy that is an incentive to a disincentive to do that?
No. The only thing that we have is we grant the approval at times for them to close one lane. Sometimes they'll slip out and have another lane closed, but we do grant the approvals, but there is no financial implications to them for our approval.
Okay.
Madam.
Thank you. I'd like to, Mr. Turner, Mr. Garrity, as we move closer to the closing, which it's now March, really April, this thing is coming fast, and I know we've been doing, a great job at making sure our citizens know, but we may have to look up ramping that up, because I don't think really people, as we say, they'll know when it closes. But the thing that I'm concerned about, like Councilmember Larson and Councilmember McIntosh, downtown and places where we know people are going to try to detour through the city when we initially closed 40. Is there any way that we could get a map with some dots colored on it of upcoming street work that's going to be done or construction that's going to be done that we don't even see right now? Because even when I come downtown every day, I'm going like, wow, how long is that? That's still going on 3 years. So can we do that? And then somehow we got to communicate that to the public, because people are going to think they will be able to get off 40, whether it's Martin Luther King or whip around the connector, the Salem Creek, and come through town. And town is basically going to be shut down too. So I think we need to make sure we cover all our bases.
Ms. Burke?
Yes, but you connect with the Visit Winston-Salem to see what they're doing.
Absolutely. We're already working. Mr. McNeil, the Chamber of Winston-Salem. We'll bring a report that shows all the things. We're using the new beacon technology that Ed McNeil is rolling out to try to communicate directly to drivers. But this issue, as far as other streets, we can add that easily to the list, because you're right, they'll be dumping off everywhere. And
The development is not going to stop.
Let me just, Mr. McNeil, that just speak to question. We all have this sophisticated software on our phones and things that navigates. Can you talk to that and tell it at a certain time that road's closed?
We cannot, but one of the things we're encouraging, and this also came from NCDOT, is for people to download the app called Waze. Waze allows us as users to contribute back. So something as simple as, hey, there's a pothole at the corner of First
Yeah.
and Main. We can contribute that information, and everybody who's on the network will see it. But we don't have the ability to get that kind of information like you're speaking of. The beacons, what we've been doing with the beacons is we've placed those around downtown in different places, and we've told people about closures that are coming up.
Okay.
And so we've used it that way, and we've used social media advertising where we basically did a 1 mile radius around the project and said anybody that comes inside of this space, if they use a computer and they go to the internet, we want them to see an ad that tells them about the upcoming projects. And so we've been doing that. We started in the spring. We had a campaign that ran through November and December, and we just had one recently when they were reducing or closing the lanes because of the bridge coming out.
Okay, thank you. Mr.
Yes, sir.
McIntosh?
And even people who don't use Waze, Apple Maps and Google Maps are crowdsourced.
Yeah.
And so if the traffic is moving slow, your map will show you a red line or yellow or an orange line. So if you're computer conscious, you'll pick up on it a lot more rapidly than if you're not plugged in.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? If not, I'll get a motion on C13. Or is this just for information? Request. Okay, I need a motion. We have a motion.
Yeah. So moved.
Jeff, somebody gonna second?
Yep.
Somebody do this? Here we go. Okay, if everybody please vote. Okay, that is done. That finishes the consent. Hang on a minute. We have 3 items on general government. We will start with the first one. If Secretary, please read this one, please.
Item G1, resolution rejecting all proposals for advertising services for the Dixie Classic Fair and approving the provision of those services by the City of Winston-Salem Marketing and Communications Department.
Mr. Rao, do you want to open this and have Mr. McNeil come up, or however y'all want to do it?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, members of the City Council. At your February 19th meeting, City staff had presented a resolution to award a contract for advertising services for the Dixie Classic Fair to Wildfire LLC. At that time, there was some discussion, and the decision of council was to send it back to Finance Committee for further discussion and for staff to present a proposal for in-house provision of the advertising services for the 2018 Dixie Classic Fair. The item that is before you this afternoon is a resolution that would reject all of the proposals that were submitted for advertising services and then approve the provision of those advertising services by the city's Marketing and Communications Department for the 2018 Dixie Classic Fair only. Mr. McNeil did include his proposal in the agenda package, and he is here to provide you additional information about the proposed in-house option.
Mr. McNeil, come on up, however you want to do it. And I believe in our packet is what you're going to be talking about.
That's right. Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the Finance Committee, the proposal in front of you takes really 2 top initiatives that I believe will have a positive impact on the fair that we are uniquely positioned to provide. Number one, we have a TV station that operates that would provide video through social media as well as back to the websites. The video is king of the internet. So where we have the ability to be out on site and capture the things that are going on during the fair, because we have that staff already in place, we think we provide ourselves a great advantage in communicating to the public. Much of the positioning will be from a mindset of the fear of missing out. We want to show people the good time that people are having there, and nothing does that like video. So that's, I would say, kind of tier 1 of how we can provide a different set of skills to the fairgrounds. The second is our use of beacon technology. What we have envisioned, and we've worked with both Mr. Rao as well as David Sparks, is to do a giveaway of $1,000 worth of products, tickets, food over the course of each day. So $1,000 per day for 10 days. And what this is focusing on is encouraging people to come out because it's a brand new way to enjoy the fair. So you come out with your mobile device is connecting with the beacons. The lead communication that we're giving to the public is talking to them about how to get their phones set up for this. We've been using this technology, as I said, since November, but we would show them how to do that, and then when they enter the fair and they come inside of the range of those beacons, they can see the items that are being given away. It gives David an opportunity for more locations to sell advertisement because we wouldn't use all the space on the beacons to do the giveaways. We would use it.
What do you mean by beacons?
So a beacon is, I have.
I apologize.
That's
I don't
okay.
have one.
So this is a device that communicates with mobile phones through Bluetooth and location. Okay. So we did this example today with the Public Assemblies Committee. But if you have a mobile device and you would download the physical web, I can show you because there's a signal coming off of this one right now. This one was being used to promote bonds.
Okay, it's just a remote
Yes, sir.
antenna.
And so it pushes information out inside of the radius that we set up. This one is set for 100 yards. We've had them out at the intersection behind us here at First and Church. We have them up along 4th Street. We're working with recreation centers to have them out there. And so what happens is you're moving along, you have the physical web loaded onto your iPhone, and when you open that physical web, you see ads, or in this case, coupons. So I keep telling people every time I talk to somebody about this, I talk about those Amish donuts because that's my favorite. But you come into the Dixie Classic Fair and you see the coupon for an Amish donut. We're giving away 50 of these, and so you show up at the line. We've worked with the vendor in advance to make sure that we're ready to serve that customer, and we give those away. We do the same thing with tickets, ride tickets. And so we pair that with an increased sense of the fear of missing out through our video and social media and website, along with the natural opportunity seeking to save money, and we believe we can have a positive impact on the fair. This is new technology. It's not being used at our fair. To my knowledge, they have used it at the state fair in Raleigh, but not this way. They used it to promote that there were different tickets that were available to buy, but they had not used it in this exact way. So we're excited about the opportunity. We think your in-house agency takes care of all of your city departments right now. As I've talked to some people about this, I've said we don't have the luxury to turn down one of our customers. And so the opportunity to serve the Dixie Classic Fair, we're excited about that opportunity. We've already met with them to talk about what can be done, what needs to be done, what their thoughts are on how they'd like to see it improved, and we believe we'll serve them well.
Who will most be using that beacon?
So anyone with a mobile device?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Right now, you don't have any idea.
So right now, the industry says that about 30% of us have our phones already set up to receive the communication. We're taking a different tact where what we're saying is this is how you can get the discount. Here's how you set your phone up to receive it. So you go, if you have an iPhone and you go on and you download the physical web, it'll show up in the Apple Store as PHYWEB. You download that, and then when you get inside the range of the beacon, it sends a message to your phone, and you can open it, and you'll see the coupon. But right now, without telling anybody about it, only about 30% of the market has their phone ready for it.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Mr.
I guess one of my concerns about this is I understand this marketing effort is fairly labor intensive. We've got so much staff. Are you guys feeling comfortable that we're going to be able to take this on, execute it well, because this is a big deal. I mean, there's a lot of money that flows through this. We count on that for lots of things, and still be able to provide the high level of support that you guys do for the other marketing efforts of the city.
Yes, sir. With just our staff alone, we don't think so. We think that's where we need contractors. We already have contractors in place helping us to make sure that we serve our city department customers now. We have writers, we have videographers, We have folks that help us when we think that we're going to run a risk of not being able to serve one of our customers, and we bring them in. And so the package that you see before you also includes us bringing in some staff. We have to be mindful of the fact that anything else could happen back here, I'll say around City Hall or with any of our other departments, and we have to serve. We need to produce new graphics. We need to produce videos. We need to do those things. We're going to serve our customers. And if it means we have to bring in some contract help to assist with that, this budget accounts for that.
And I'll just comment, I do love the use of technology to sort of multiplex the message to get it out there. And I mean, beacons are something that I've been aware of for a long time, and I love to see us using that because it's cutting edge.
Thank you.
Mr. Washington, do you have a question?
A couple questions, and I think it's ignorance, but looking at your budget where it says Media Placement Commission.
Yes, sir.
Could you explain to me what that line is? Media Placement Commission.
Yes, sir. So Media Placement Services is a business that's been a partner of ours since 2014, and their job is to place the media as myself and Frank Elliott describe how it should be placed. So we're able to work with them and say, okay, in the example of police recruiting, we want to serve up graphics for our minority recruiting that identifies with that audience. So when we say to them, place this ad, they place that ad for us and they get a commission off of that placement. We don't pay them an actual fee. Okay, so this figure is reflective of them placing $140,000 worth of advertisement across traditional radio, television, print, but also our digital advertisement placement. So that's their commission for placing that $140,000.
So are they the ones that go around and put up the posters on restaurant walls?
No, sir.
Who
Not them.
actually puts up the various flyers and posters and stuff that we see throughout the city?
If it's something for the city of Winston-Salem, my team does it.
You do that?
We do it, or I can think of a couple instances where council assist CAL members actually take care of that. But yes, sir, our team does it.
So
back to Rock the Block days and the 5K days, we were responsible for that.
So we're going back to this manpower issue, I think, that Councilman McIntosh brought up. Your working relationship then with the fair staff obviously is in this regard new.
Yes.
And whereas the previous contractor, I think, had worked with them before and I think had an understanding of maybe what they wanted or thought they wanted, your working relationship then with Mr. Sparks and his crowd, you feel comfortable? What role do they play in the sense of this sort of logistics or anything else that you have in mind to implementation?
There is a staff member there who works in I'll call it marketing and communications for them, Rachel Lowe. We work with Rachel because we are responsible for marketing the Fairground Farmers Market. We've been doing that for the last 3 to 4 years, and she's been a partner of ours out there, so there's a lot of familiarity. We helped her to develop, we helped her to bring together the resources to be able to do the live social media that she did during the 2017 Dixie Classic Fair. And so we have some relationship with them. We have, I can think back easily 5-6 years where we've worked with the fairgrounds to promote activities there. So it's not a completely new, you're right that it's for the Dixie Classic Fair, it is a new experience, but we take it the same way that we do working with our city departments. We're going to get in there and learn what we need to learn and work to execute and take care of it.
I just noticed on your team biographies that there was nobody on the fair staff committee listed on your team, and I was wondering if the formality of the relationship between you and the fairground staff, if that had any kind of formal structure at this point.
No, sir.
No, it does not.
We didn't list them. We didn't list Rachel simply because she's not a part of marketing and communications.
Okay.
That was the only reason. But she'll be very much a
She'll
part.
be at the table.
Plan. Yes, sir.
They'll be well represented.
Yes, sir.
Right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any questions over here? Ms. Allen?
Again, I think, where we are, what we've read, what was sent to us, it's a good beginning, but it goes back to that I will continue to say about us being intentional about what we do. And Mr. McNeil understands what I'm saying. I know that, the conversations are tough when we have to do a deep dive into where we're trying to go with this. again, this was nothing personal. This is about being intentional about diversity inclusion. And that doesn't always include, as I was at a workshop at the League of Cities, it's not always about race. Everybody always thinks that race is the first thing. It's not always about that. It's about us making sure as the leaders of our city that our citizens and people that own small minority women businesses are allowed to participate in the process and have access to those opportunities. And I think, you know, also, Mr. Garrett, as we go forward, again, staff, I can't think of that new department we got, compliance or something. We now got to go look at our policies and procedures as to how we vet requests for proposals and other things, again, not just for minority women in business, but for all contracts. In the day we live in, it might be now that we have to do this because it could be that we're more efficient. And with the way, again, budget season is upon us, it will behoove us now to do some lessons learned, that every contract that comes up, whether it's being a request for a proposal or they're bidding again, and they've had it for years, again, it's nothing personal, any business would go back and look at the cost efficiency of that contract to see whether it's cheaper for us to do it, it's cheaper for us to do it and still maybe bring in the other contractor to do some outsourcing. But at the end of the day, it's cheaper to our taxpayers. You know, I also asked when we asked Mr. McNeil, were we up and capable to do this? I've been here all my life. I've been to more Dixie Classic fairs probably than a lot of people. And I've lived in this community where the fair is because it's in the North Ward. I'm just going like, how many times does any of us remember the last advertisement we actually saw for Dixie Classic Fair? Mine is on the television with the little pigs running. That's the deal that I remember. And I'm sure most of you remember that. But what we have to make sure doesn't happen as we move forward, when we think about diversity, inclusion, what happened to HM when they put the little boy, the little black boy in that T-shirt? Because you got to have folks in the room that are able to look at the situations and the people that we're doing business with and hope that that doesn't happen and that the businesses are sensitive to all of the people and the cultures that live in our city. You know, so again, I think we can do this. And again, I'm hoping that when we go forward, again, Mr. Garrity, that we look at our policies to ensure we do a deep dive going forward so we don't have to probably have these discussions again.
Ms. Burke.
As Mr. McNeil was speaking, I felt good. And I felt that the city manager ought to feel good that we have a department can take over a responsibility and be good at it. When the councilwoman talked about going to so many fairs early on, we have not been as diverse as we should. That's a fact. I feel that the city's department will make it and can see what we need to do. Now, when I introduced that MWBE, there was a white female who was a reporter. And she said to me, why you always want to bring that up? I said, because you're a part of the MWBE, women and small businesses. And so I think this is a plus. We can only know by trying it. And when we try it, then we can evaluate.
Okay. Mr. McIntosh, have a comment?
I want to just talk about intentionality for a minute. We go through periods of time where we outsource, and that's a great idea, and we save money there. And then it seems like we're on a cycle now to bring things in-house. Street sweeping contract, we ended up getting, we're going to get much better service. I'd like to be more, right. I'd like to be more intentional about this. This one seems like it was more herky-jerky than it certainly needed to be. If the prime, you know, if we're not looking up front on every one of these contracts to say, can we bring this in-house, get the job done, save money, and provide the same quality, then we need to be. This one seemed like it happened in the middle of it, and it was awkward. I don't think it showed us in our best light.
But first,
go ahead,
it should have been presented in a different way from the very beginning, from out of that public assembly or either that fairground. Mrs. Fox came here. They were not quite up front as they should have been. We just need to be real.
I'll make my comment, and everybody said make theirs. I cannot support this. Twice we have gone out with a proposal. By the way, Mr. Mill has absolutely nothing to do with your folks. It has to do with, I would use the word honor. Twice this city went out for proposals and asked people. The second, and after the first one, a diverse group of city employees said that this company, and by the way, I don't know anybody in any of these companies. I met Mr. Bennett for the first time 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whenever they started. A diverse group of city employees said they were the most qualified. Council had questions. We went out again. We put an MB, whatever the initials are, Minority Women Business Owners, MWBE on it, and they said they would meet that. The committee looked at it again and said, yes, they're still the most qualified. Not only have we moved the goalposts once during the game, we've moved it twice. I think you should play by our rules. That's all I'm saying. We made the rules. We should honor them. Twice, this company has legitimately, honestly, above board, play by the books rule won this contract. And I will not vote for anything but award that to them. If we want to do something different, you change the rules before the game starts, not changing the rules twice after the game starts. So for that reason, I can only support a motion to award it to the person who earned it fair and square. That's all. Now, everybody said their piece. I need a motion. We have a motion to approve, and let's be sure everybody understands what we're voting on. This is for the District Classic to be handled by the city's communications department. Do I have a second? We have a second, Mr.
Could I have one point of clarification?
Yeah.
What is the difference in the cost of these two contracts? The question was raised earlier in the last meeting that we would see a certain savings.
I think it's about $10,000 cheaper. It's about $10,000 cheaper, according to Mr. McNeil, doing it in-house.
10,000 is the total for difference between contract A and B.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, and hopefully it'll come up in a minute. We can vote. If someone second, Ms. Burke, hit second.
Yeah, I said.
Mine doesn't show. Hit it again, just in case. All right, hang on. There we go. Everybody, please vote. That is approved. 3 in favor, 1 opposed. Thank you. We will now go to G2.
Item G2, consideration of items relating to facade improvement and streetscape enhancement project in the Patterson-Glen Ruka area located in the Northeast Ward in the amount of $334,000.
Mr. Brodie, why don't you give us 2 minutes on this so everybody understands what we're talking about?
Certainly. Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, and members of the committee.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So for the last several months, staff has been looking to find remedies to address the blighted commercial conditions in the commercial strip at the corners of Patterson, Glen, and Greenway Avenues. And if you're not familiar with that, the current conditions of that particular corridor, there's some images in your materials to kind of get you oriented. So in that period of several months, staff has determined that there are 3 options that are available to us in terms of addressing those conditions. The first option proposes a facade improvement and streetscape enhancement project, specifically on the properties pictured in those images that front Patterson Avenue. Now, the proposed streetscape enhancements in the public right-of-way would include new on-street parking, a new pedestrian sidewalk, granite curbing, pedestrian level lighting, and landscape bump outs for tree planting. And then on the actual facades themselves, we proposed possibility for painting and some awnings and architectural cladding. There is actually, we've contracted with an architect to do some preliminary site work and some design, and you will see in your materials that there is a rendering that architect has provided to give you some idea of what could be done to those particular properties. So the total estimate for that project, as you see pictured in your items, it comes to a total of about $334,000. If you chose to pursue that path, there would be a number of sources used. I will note that this is a RUCA area, and so the project would largely be funded by using infrastructure funds that were set aside as part of the 2014 bond issue for RUCA funding. The second option would involve the mayor and council choosing to pursue the remedies as prescribed under the unsafe non-residential buildings or structures section of Chapter 10, Article 2 of the City Code. If you remember, this was a new provision that the mayor and council added to the code late last fall. Essentially, that would puts in place a process that mirrors very similarly the process that we use in taking residential structures that are considered nuisances to the General Government Committee and Council for ultimately for demolition. And you can see in the memo that I've provided you gives you a brief of what that process looks like. So again, the intent there would potentially lead to the demolition of those properties and the assessment of the cost of demolition to the property owners. At this particular time, we don't have a good estimate on what that cost would be. The final option, of course, would be negotiating the acquisition of the properties. Just a review of the tax records, the assessed value of the properties that are contained within that triangle area come to about $145,000. That's the cost of the land and the structures themselves. We do not, again, have an idea of what the demolition cost would be, but given the size and the age of those structures, would be a fairly substantial amount. So those are the three options that we have proposed, and at this juncture, we're just looking for direction from this committee in terms of a preferable option to pursue. So with that, I will answer any questions.
Ms. Burke, this is your area, I believe. Would you like to comment, questions, anything?
Yes, I was just going to let Mr. Chairman and other folks do their talking.
Okay.
And then after they give their point of view, I'll give mine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
Adam?
thank you.
Go ahead.
Again, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for wanting to try to do this, and Mr. Evans. I know this neighborhood. Everybody knows I know this neighborhood. My parents bought their first house right around the corner from these buildings back in 1964. I remember in the flight of the white flight out of the neighborhood and black people moved in, and in those buildings that they're talking about was Dr. Hairston and the drugstore and furniture stores and the beauty salon and all of those other things that were operated, the barbershop, by black small businesses in the community once it became predominantly African American. The Wachovia building, which is now the Phillips Black building, the hot dog place was an Aetna service station built from ground, owned by Attorney Michael Grace's father-in-law. Community shoe shop was there where the 7-Eleven was. And this is a historical community. So I would be supporting this. My question is, though, I would hate for us to have to demolish this at all. And I know these buildings are standing just hanging by the thread. I was wanting to know, is there any, or are there any historical, anything we can do to attach to these properties? Let's say, so once we get the outside done, because that's not going to include the inside, am I right?
That's correct, yes.
But we're hoping to enhance the appearance for the community and the development that took place up the street at the old 7-Up building and bring some vibrancy back to the community. So, you know, I'm all in. I think it's a great deal. The community has unfortunately suffered long enough. And I think that part of Patterson Avenue would do a lot for Glen and Greenway area as well.
Ms. McIntosh.
What we're talking about with our, I guess the first option, the RUCA funds, is essentially a mothballing operation. I mean, to me, the area of growth in our downtown core is north. There's a lot of opportunity there. We're already seeing things start to happen. And as we've talked about before, Patterson Avenue is the same architecture and housing styles as Hawthorne Road. And I think over time that's going to be where progress occurs. South is pretty much locked in Old Salem and area. You can't go west. I think progress and development is going to go north. If we tear these buildings down, first of all, to acquire them at $145,000, we know that's not going to happen. That's tax value. We start negotiating, that number is going to go up, and the cost to tear them down and put them in the landfill, we're probably going to end up fairly close to that $300,000 mark. And when it does come time to redevelop that area, we're going to get something that goes up that is not genuine Winston-Salem architecture. It'll be something that'll be anywhere USA architecture. So I'm not always a big fan of RUCA funds. I don't think they necessarily always provide the spark or the catalyst that they're designed to do. But to me, in this case, this is saving a resource that we will not be able to replace down the road. So I would support the first option.
I'll just make a few comments because you're looking for input, because this is just FYI today and direction. I drive by here probably twice a week, and I used to drive by twice a day because I used to get my mail at the post office at the top of the hill. Don't anymore. Used to. Streetscape improvements strike me as being a good one. We have redone, I think it was a 7-Up bottling plant, and then where the community shoe store was, they tore that down and redid that, I believe. I believe the old Aetna station where I used to buy gas is a restaurant now or something. My concern with putting the facades on is what is the interior of the buildings like? Some of those buildings have been empty for as long as I can remember, and I'm just wondering if they are savable.
Well, Councilmember Clark, I will tell you that the conditions of the interiors do vary pretty dramatically. I will say that there's at least one existing business in the strip, and they're directly adjacent to that. There's an individual who has recently invested some money and has put on a new roof in a project that we've partnered on, and a couple of facades down, kind of that red facade if you see it on your map. There was an effort not too long ago to create a nightclub or some type of club in that particular space. So they do vary, but I say that to say that there are some salvageable. So
you think they're savable?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I guess given that, I think that's probably the best option because I don't know what it costs to tear them down and clear land off. But anyway, Ms. Burke. Oh, excuse me.
If I can just speak to that. I've got a son who lives in Raleigh and one who lives in Charlotte, and the way their downtown expanded is into areas like this, and you go in, and similar to the Joymonger Beer Hall over in the West End, you're buying the facade. When you go in and to redo one of these places, there's not much left of the interior once you get done. Joymonger's, he spent $800,000 on the interior of the building, and so you end up with essentially a shell, and everything inside there is going to go anyway. So mothballing to me makes perfect sense.
Okay. Ms. Burke, or excuse me, Ms. Larson.
How many property owners do we have in this block, different property owners?
There are approximately 4. I think there's 7 different buildings.
Different buildings.
I think there are a total of 4 property owners.
And we've had discussions with all of those, and if we spend money on the front of their building, they're not going to come back in a year and a half and tear it down.
I certainly would anticipate that. We did, in anticipation that a project might come, a city-involved project, we've actually procured the support and release agreements from all of the property owners.
So they're willing for us to come onto their property, make the upgrades, and consequently sort of have a commitment to help preserve these buildings. We don't have any leverage to force them to do anything on the interiors of their buildings other than normal inspections.
That's correct. Now, I will say that the unsafe building provision of Chapter 10, Article 2 of the Code would, if council so chose to designate this area as a redevelopment area,
right,
under the provisions of the code, there could be some requiring of the property owners to do things. But
right,
that would, of course, necessitate the designation of that area first, which would ultimately, if the property owners did not address the items that needed to be addressed as part of inspections, would lead to demolition. And
that's a dangerous road.
Yeah,
I think, the very few vernacular buildings, historic buildings that I don't like, this row has integrity as a unit. I think it's either going to be revived, and it's going to take some city investment to bring it back, or we're going to lose it entirely. And so I'm wondering, where did this idea come from? Did it come from the property owners, or did we initiate this concept of intervention?
Well, I'll say that I know that Councilmember Burke for a very long time has been an advocate for addressing the conditions in not just this particular triangle, but the broader
Area plan. Well, I think it's a small amount of money for a huge amount of return if we can bring this whole block back, and I would certainly support that.
Mr. Montgomery, you have any comments? If anybody else has, I'll let you speak. You late come in?
Sure. I was working.
It's okay. Welcome back.
Paying my taxes and Social Security. But on this item in particular, first question, the young man we had talked to some time ago who was in one of these buildings, is that the person you're referencing that's still,
Yes.
Are they still operating and working?
Mackin.
Yes,
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr. McIntosh.
Mr. Mackin.
Yeah,
Not
who
that
was, which, I think is great. A guy who's enterprising, or working a business, sweat equity going into a building that he brought me down that I didn't want to walk into the building. But sweat equity in terms of making it function for their use. And when we think about RUCA, we think about RUCA investments across the community. I think that we have to look at them in aspects of what we've done throughout the city and throughout other parts of the community. When we look at this area, Patterson Glen, this is downtown Winston-Salem some time ago in terms of when we look at buildings and improvement and investments that were made to begin to make the aesthetics look in a way where other people thought, I can make an investment in this community. At the top, as we've already stated, from the investment that's been championed by the council person in that area in the old 7-Up bottling plant down to the other side at the gas station that has been worked. Once you do this in the center, now you have this cohesive area that starts to come together that I think will be impactful for us as a community, and grateful for the work that's been done by the council member, and look forward to how we can see more happening in that area because of this investment. So.
Thank you. Ms. Burke?
Yes, Attorney, were you going to say something?
Yes, I was. Just let him lead now. Preservation of the structures, Councilmember Marshall, I guess the concern that you expressed will be addressed in agreement with each property owner.
Thank you. I think they have said it all, Mr. Chairman, but I would like to say that Mr. Evans has worked very hard with the people there, and also the people there seem to be conscientious about the beauty shop as well as the man next door. And also the corner there on Greenway and Patterson, he also has a RUCA grant that he wants to do some things. And I have been sending letters with the business people about how the area looked and what I expect from them, and they seem to be cooperating with us, those on the other side of Patterson Avenue. So I think with what I've heard today, that if we could move forward with the plan to move this ahead, it would make a tremendous difference for that area up there. And it's been a small group who's been working on a regular basis, the north area of the neighbors up there who meet regular and talk about this. And I think they will feel good to see that we are moving forward. And also the person you got to do the rendering is a very good plan. And I think moving in this direction, we will see something positive.
Okay. So, Mr. Raleigh, I think the direction from the committee is to come back with that formal resolution. I would like for you to include in there who the property owners are, and maybe the little diagram you have that shows the size of the buildings, the footprints and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I don't know if you're going to do a more detailed sketch of exactly where you're going to put street lights. I don't know how detailed y'all get, but whatever you normally do, if you bring it back, we'll go forward with it.
Absolutely. Happy to.
Excuse me, go ahead.
One more thing. That was a nightclub in there. There used to be a nightclub.
And how do you know that?
Because I went.
All right. Let the records reflect.
While you were living on
Yeah, well, I lived on Okalana.
Okay.
I'm sure you remember seeing that.
What happens at Finance Committee stays at Finance Committee. Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Burke, good project. Bring forward. Last item for the day is G3. If the Secretary would read that one, please.
Item G3, consideration of a request from KQC Investors LLC regarding outstanding city loans and deed restrictions to Northwest Child Development Center located in the East Ward.
Mr. Page, this has a lot of moving parts. Would you walk us through it, please?
Yes, good afternoon. This item is for informational purposes and seeking direction from the committee regarding next steps. Representatives are here from KQC Investors also that will speak at the end of my brief overview of what's before you. But back in August of 2011, Council authorized the sale of a parcel of land to Northwest Child Care Development. Sold that land to them for the construction of Mud Pies East. Sold the land to them for $362,000. They provided cash of $203,000, and under the terms of the agreement, were able to earn credit for the balance of $158,750 based upon job creation and taxes being paid on the property. Since the facility opened, they've earned credits of about $104,000 roughly, and in 2016 did not pay property taxes on it, but made a payment in lieu of taxes of $71.25. The entire loan was to be forgiven for acquisition over a 10-year period. To further assist with the project, the city made a series of operational loans to Northwest Child Care Development. Those loans totaled $483,000. One of the loans has been paid in full, that was for $75,000, and the other two loans continue to meet their terms and conditions. The balance of those loans is just south of $365,000. In addition to the city loans, Northwest Child Care also has a loan of about $2.2 million for BB&T, equipment loan of approximately $300,000 that is subordinated behind the city's loan. The city is subordinated to the BB&T loan.
Who has that $300,000 loan?
That was the equipment. I believe it was Computer National.
Somebody else, some third
Yeah.
party. Okay, that's fine.
So staff was recently approached by KQC Investors in reference to a letter of intent that they have entered into with Northwest Child Care Development to purchase Mud Pies East. Currently, the property, Mud Pies East, does serve as collateral for the city's loans. KQC is requesting that the city agree to several conditions as part of the restructuring and the sale of the property from Mud Pies to KQC. The first condition is that KQC would assume the original $300,000 loan, which now has a balance of $258,000, with the following modifications. The city would delete one of the requirements that there be a $6,000 annual replacement reserve fund for Northwest Child Care. The city would also subordinate to KQC up to $900,000 to purchase the facility. So that $900,000 would then go in front of the city's loan of $258,000. The second set of conditions involves the loan that was used for acquisition. KQC would assume the balance of the loan, which is approximately $47,700, and based upon new tax credits and job creation, the loan will continue to be forgiven on an annual basis until the entire loan will be forgiven. KQC would purchase debt and subordinate approximately 1.5. The city would also need to allow KQC to subordinate an additional $1.5 million on that loan, which was the $47,000. And the city would allow the current deferral terms to continue with KQC as long as they met the assumption provisions. There is one loan, so two of the three loans would be addressed, both the loan for operations and the loan for acquisition. 2 of those 3 outstanding loans would be addressed. There's a third loan of $108,300. Because there are no sales proceeds available to cover this portion of the loan, there's been a request made that either the city would renegotiate payment of this loan with Northwest Child Care. However, in conversations with Northwest Child Care, they've advised that they don't have funds available to pay this loan. So, in essence, we would either have to forgive this loan either to, well, it would be to Northwest Child Care because they're the ones currently on the line for this loan. So we'd, in essence, forgive this loan. Northwest Child Care is receiving proceeds for the purchase of the property. However, there are outstanding federal liens in front of the city's loans. There's also a line of credit behind the city's loan that we don't care about because behind us, but the federal liens are in front of us and would take right to receive all of those proceeds from the sale, which the federal liens total almost $110,000, and they're getting about $100,000. The last condition that's being requested by KQC is that the city will release the deed restrictions requiring the property be used for a nonprofit carrying out a public purpose. As you recall, that was a provision under which we sold the land to them, and it had been retained as such for 25 years. In exchange, KQC would operate the daycare facility for at least 10 years, and if they fail to do so, will make a payment to the city of $55,000. Again, there are representatives here from KQC. Staff would suggest that if you do entertain the request from them, that a couple of things that you do look at would be, first of all, that you should request that KQC should at a minimum make a good faith effort to make sure that at least 33% of the families served are low moderate income for at least 10 years. And secondly, that KQC should make a good faith effort to retain at least 50% of the employees for 5 years. The funds used for these loans were housing finance assistance funds, so you do have considerable flexibility in how you might negotiate any request from KQC.
Okay. Would the folks from KQC like to come up and make any comments that they would like to make? And there should be a microphone right there, sir. And if you'll give your name and address for the record.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. My name is Steve Minnick. I'm an attorney for KQC Investors.
And an address in case we got to get in touch with you.
An address?
Business or whatever you got.
Absolutely, yeah. My address is 4016 Max Drive, Winston-Salem.
Okay, thank you, sir. Go right ahead.
Yes. Mr. Page provided an excellent summary. Just by a way of a little bit of background, KQC Investors was originally approached through discussions with BB&T. As the holder of the first lien, they've been looking for an out on this. That loan's been in default, I believe, for some period of time. And so they approached KQC, and after discussions, they agreed that they would resolve their first lien for $1.5 million. I've been told the outstanding balance is over $2.4 million at this time. So our belief is that the city would not likely see proceeds if the property were foreclosed. It's obviously not in foreclosure. Essentially, we're proposing a short sale workout on this.
Does your client have any concerns with the 2 conditions that Mr. Page listed at the end there?
No. In terms of good faith efforts to retain employees and also to continue to serve low-income, moderate-income population, that would not be a problem.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments? Mr. McIntosh, you had your hand up.
But you won't be running the business here, right?
No, the business would actually be operated by the same operator that currently operates the Foundation's Early Learning Center on Poplar Street. That's correct. And that is a property that an affiliate of KQC Investors previously purchased from another investor but it was operated as a Northwest Child Development Mud Pies location. And so KQC Investors bought the property from the property owner and then leased it to another company that operates the foundations.
Were there similar requirements and restrictions on that property as we're talking about here in terms of retaining staff and keeping it?
Not to my recollection. That property was actually owned by just another investor, local company that leased it to Northwest Development.
We would have the opportunity to review any agreements with your tenant, which would be early childhood group, to make sure that we felt comfortable that those things were in that agreement.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Ms. Adams.
Yeah, I can just only say my concerns are with the financials, as well as the use. The fact that they said that, we'll only do daycare maybe for 10 years. When we signed on to this, the reason that I went with it in the first place was the fact that everybody kept telling us there was not enough daycare for the Innovation Quarter, the African American community, Patterson, Martin Luther King, and I was all in on that. And now the fact that we say that we're only going to have the low income to moderate income for 10 years and 33% of the families, again, I'm just expressing my concerns that we want to talk about, again, inclusion and gentrification. I mean, now, again, Patterson Avenue, as Ms. Burke knows, and some of you, that was the African-American community forever, part of what she's trying to do. But the reason I signed on to this was because of providing daycare to not just the professionals downtown at the Innovation Quarter, but African-American, Latino, Hispanic, low-income to moderate families, because daycare is expensive. And again, that's my concerns, the financials, the usage, and the 33%, 10-year deal.
I would go along with some of the other things, but still the children will have to have a place to stay. There are going to be people in that area after 10 years. And these people will be trying to get their children to a daycare going way across places that will be not convenient for them. And that will be my only way of not supporting this ministry. Did you say somebody else was here from your group?
Yes, Matthew Marceron, one of the principals of KQC Investors, is here as well. Would you like to
I
hear?
just want to see. I'd like to know who we may be going to do business with.
May I address those concerns just briefly? So KQC Investors is obviously a for-profit company. It has extensive investments in facilities that are leased for daycare or for Head Start facilities throughout the country. And their intent would absolutely be to operate a daycare. That's their interest in this location. The building's perfectly built for it. It's a beautiful building. And they would intend to operate an excellent daycare there for the foreseeable future. Some of the conversations with city staff have just been in terms of what would be, if for whatever reason this daycare proves not to be financially viable, they would have to look at other alternatives. And so we talked about a financial penalty that matched roughly the balance of the forgivable loan. We mentioned the number $55,000 as a penalty if they were not to do that. And it's difficult to say that they would continue. Obviously, the tenant would not continue to operate as well if they were losing money. But we don't expect that at all, and we expect that there'll be a daycare there for many, many years.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to see it said that rather than 10 years. If you look at our Winston-Salem Forsyth County school system, when they select the school of choice, this is why we have the kind of system we have today, where children are dropping out of school, where you need to put people who are different together. When you take children who are performing at a certain academic level, and you take other children who are not, then these children help these children. If you would go today and you look at the record of the school system, and you look at the abilities of the children in the system, those people who pick who picked school of choice, they went together. And then they left folks who may not be as competitive together, and that's why our school system is not worth 2 cents today. And so Mr. Chairman, I could not go along with the 10 years that you were talking about keeping that in there, if I just knew that the poor folks' children could mingle with the other folks' children.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Montgomery, then Mr. Marshall.
Couple of things. One, on its face, the conversation and transition of property is something that I can support. It comes down to the specifics that we're having conversation with. I think, one, the concept of a daycare in this location is not an ill-advised concept. I think one of the challenges Northwest Child Development Center faces is undercapitalization in terms of being able to truly fulfill all the financial components associated with the business concept. This building is built to be a daycare. To use it as something other than a daycare would be extremely expensive for anybody else to use this building for anything other than a daycare. So I'm not as concerned about the fact of the building and property not being utilized as a daycare for the foreseeable future because of the recent investment in the property, new construction, and the current life of what exists there and what you have to do something different on that site would be extremely expensive. But the concern that's raised in reference to the longevity of being able to ensure a diverse set of individuals being served there is a good one because of what we know that's happening around that location. We see that we're going to have hundreds of new apartments within walking distance of this location. Some of those individuals will be students, some of those individuals will be families, some of those individuals will be working individuals. And so the question then is, you have this new demographic of people that are located within walking distance. How does that then intersect with the population that's currently being served at that location? And so the piece that I was just simply asked is there a way to look at some language that does afford for a longer period of time? Does that what is the negative impact of having some language that does just what some of the other council members have mentioned today in ensuring that this population is served for a longer period of time than what's mentioned? Daycare being there for the long term, I see it, again, going back to the facility, but this question that's raised, I think, is a good question for us to try to figure out if there's an opportunity. I'm looking at in the back there so we figure that out.
Mr. Larson, do you have a comment?
Yeah, this operation seems to be sputtering along and not a particularly financially successful one. And it looks like right now that the bank's really ready to take a wash on it of about $1,900,000 to get out from underneath the loans the mortgages that are out on it. I have a couple of quick questions. The math on this is really complicated for me, and I've been trying to sort it out. And I don't think I'm going to waste my colleagues' time with it because we're not voting on this today. But I would like to walk through it. But I have one quick question. If the bank's willing to take a $935,000 wash on this project, what is this going to cost the city in our loans? What we've got.
I'll ask Mr. Pate to answer that.
Right. The only loan that we would be forgiving Councilman Lawson would be the $108,300,000. The other two loans would be assumed. They've already paid off one loan. If you look at the table at the very bottom of page 2, it sort of shows that basically we would be forgiving the $108,300. All of the other loans would be paid and meet the conditions of forgiveness.
So we're losing 108. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Plus, one thing that has been mentioned, I think it was just briefly mentioned, is that the new entity would in fact be paying property tax.
Okay, Mr. Montgomery, wait a minute, Mr. Larson, you got any more questions? You look.
Yeah.
Deep thought.
We made 3 loans for operation. What was the total amount of those 3 loans? $483,000.
It's about 6 1/4. 4 loans.
The 3 loans for operations totaled $483,300.
Right, and they paid back $75.
Correct.
And that's so that leaves $408,000.
And then there's a balance on the 3. So the 300 is being paid, and it is down to 258. So paid 42 plus the 75.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to have to. I'm going to have to understand this better, and I'm not going to waste everybody's time on this yet. And I'm assuming that the takeover company feels like it is a viable business, and in fact will survive financially, and is not going to be coming back to the city for additional funding or something in the future.
Oh, absolutely. They're well capitalized, and they're doing very well at the Poplar Street location.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Montgomery, you had another comment? Go right ahead.
I did, but that was part of my concern as well. But again, I think that I mentioned the capitalization piece. I think is important when we think about running this kind of business. Daycare is expensive. It's an expensive business to run, and you have to be able to have the financials to do it successfully long term. But question in reference to any forgiveness is the reason that Mr. Page mentioned the inclusion of those terms, because legally we can't. How do, because of who we're forgiving the loan to, or how we will forgive the loan? I'm looking at the attorney.
I'm not sure I understand your question, but in
So
terms,
with us, in order for us to forgive the loan, normally there's something that we have to say of public good, or we should argue for public good. And
right, and I think by serving the population that we're talking about serving, or hiring a loan counsel, think to serve the population, I think it's good to be served by forgiving that loan that is a forgivable loan. But the other point I would make also is, despite the fact that provision statute was used, they actually paid fair market value for the property. It's just part of the purchase price was in the form of that forgivable loan, which is why we're trying to basically extract from the company some conditions to help them qualify for that.
right, and that was that's the actual piece that I was coming back around to, that the fact that Northwest Child Development didn't get a direct credit for the property, and let's say if we were doing a different deal to build this property, there's a potential opportunity from the fact of it being a new development that we may have looked at this differently in terms of what we may have put into a project up front to help construct a facility that's going to be taxable. The question that I then would ask is this an opportunity for us to, and they'd have to agree that this is a deferred loan that is forgiven and amortized over a period of time as long as X continues to be executed over a period of time.
You're talking about the $108,000.
Right. That sits out there, and it amortizes down as.
Hey, Mr. Page can comment on that. How is that forgiven each year?
That is actually an amortizing loan, so that one is not forgiven. That's the request that it be forgiven.
Oh, okay, yeah, nothing's
but
been
not,
paid on it.
Correct. That one is not amortized at all to date, but the request is that from KQC is that we forgive it on behalf of Northwest Child Care, not them, because it's Northwest Child Care's debt.
Mr. McIntyre?
And what I'm suggesting, or offering as an opportunity, is that go as that accountability piece of ensuring that the population is served, that over the period of time, a chunk of that continues to go away as population is served.
Mr. McIntosh?
Okay, so the way I'm looking at the three loans is in the first loan, we end up actually in a better position, less risk taken by us, because there is, even though we're changing, some money comes in front of us as far as subordination, the overall amount is different, and the entity that's got it is much better capitalized. Right? Loan number 2 is about a wash, not a real change there. But loan number 3, to your question, the purchasing entity is not saying that they'll take on that debt. That debt stays with the seller. And what you're asking is, would they take that debt on and maybe in a no-interest situation agree to take that on and amortize it down over a period of time in order to fulfill some of the social obligations we're talking about, right? Okay, I'm okay with that. Although I would want to know why that. Have we looked at the books of the current operation?
The current operations is current on its loans to the city.
Okay.
So our loans are being amortized. It's the bank loan that's having
and the federal government.
And federal government.
Okay. All right. And then my final question is, person that is running this operation is running for elected office. Are we in any kind of a gotcha scenario there? Because I know they're not in office now, but is there anything that we need to have our heads up for on that? And I'm asking the attorney.
Not right now.
Not even.
Not in office at this point in time, but certainly we'll continue to keep an eye on it.
Thank you.
Let me just make a comment. This is a terrible situation. We wanted a daycare operating there. We wanted Northwest Child Development to do it. Northwest Child Development actually had 2 facilities downtown. We just mentioned the other one, which is over on Spruce Street or somewhere. Poplar was sold, and this is the next one. Folks, let me tell you a little bit about the real world. The guy holding all the money is BB&T. They could foreclose on this loan tomorrow. We would lose 100% of what we have. They'd have to pay the federal government off first because they are in first position. The government always does that. But there's $2.5 million debt in front of us, or 2.6. And I think the best thing we can do is find somebody that's committed to work with a daycare center. We're writing off 108 versus we have roughly 400 plus thousand that we could write off. And a daycare center stays there. And I understand where they're coming with on 10 years. If this thing doesn't work for them, they may have to close it down and bulldoze it and put an apartment building there, or who knows. But I think we've got an operator that wants to work with it. But we have very little leverage here because we're in third position on something which I don't know how you'd even sell it, what it would be worth. And it's certainly not worth $2.6 million, which is what it would take to get BB&T and the feds paid off. I mean, I don't think it's a bad deal is what I'm saying, and I think there's a little trust. I don't know these folks, but they operate folks all over the country. We could get a little more information about them if we wanted to. We're just looking for direction today. Staff, y'all could take a look at maybe you could amortize at 108 over so many years or write it off over so many years or something. Is there any more information the committee would like?
No, I just wanted to review what we talked about.
But I don't hear objection to it. I hear some concerns.
And that's correct, because again, our community is changing, and once those apartments that are going up now in the Innovation Quarter go up, there's going to be more people in that blockage than I've seen since I was a kid.
If they have children.
They will have children. Some of them will have children. So, I just think, like I said, we did this in hopes of providing a service to a community and trying to create a need downtown. Because we knew that younger people, 757 and all the others that are going up, they're going to have daycare. Everybody downtown is not going to be single. So all I'm asking you guys to do is just see if you can go back to the drawing board, work with staff, see what we can do, because all it's going to do is make your brand look good too.
Yeah. Well, let me. I think we've heard some comments, particularly around the 10-year issue on the 33%, and maybe some way of making that 108 more easy to digest. So I will leave that up. I don't think we can negotiate that here today, but I think the comments have been made. I just don't want us to make this thing so cumbersome that everyone walks from it and suddenly we've got an empty building. Northwest Child Development is not behind on $2.6 million worth of debt because they got too much business. They have not had the clientele they thought, and it may be they cannibalized. They had 2 locations downtown. Maybe it's not too much. I do share your comment that I think it potentially could be a good place, but I think it could be 4 or 5 years before that materializes. I voted for the initial loan. I did not vote for the other 3 for that reason. I felt like it was undercapitalized, and they've raised that question from the very beginning. But I would say, staff, you've heard some direction. See what we can come back with and go from there. Does that sound okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, that is, and that doesn't need a vote. That was just general. Gentlemen, thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Garrity, City Manager.
Chairman Clark, I wanted to remind the committee and the public we start a series of 9 capital needs community meetings this week. The first one is Wednesday, March 22nd, 6 p.m. at March 21st, 6 p.m. at Carl Russell the next night, March 22nd, we're at Haynes Hosiery. And then the next 2 weeks after that will be throughout the rest of the community. Important for us to provide information and get feedback from citizens about
Mr. McNeil, you have those dates rolling on the Channel 13 from time to time? I thought you did.
Yeah.
Okay, to the appropriate areas. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let the minutes reflect I ended on time. Thank everyone for coming. I don't see Mr. Taylor, but I'm assuming he'll begin on time.
He's assuming we'll be late.
Yeah.